Here we have a picture of the great Tony Williams, um, widely regarded by many as one of, if not the most influential drummer of the 20th century. He's he him coming to prominence at such a young age. What he brought with his energy and his drive and his creativity. It was truly unparalleled. So Tony Williams was very fortunate to have grown up in one of the jazz centers of America, Boston. And aside from his talent, one thing that really set him on his way as a drummer and set him up for the career that he did have was his tenacious drive and motivation to play as much as he could. We have here a picture of Art Blakey playing at Wally's Cafe, which was one of the big jazz clubs of Boston at the time. Williams was so tenacious and wanted to play so much that eventually he managed to sit in with the great Blakey's band. He also sat in with Max Roach's band. They're the kind of two notable drummers he sat in with, and two of his biggest influences, actually. I think he often quotes Blakey's power. Blakey probably was the most powerful drummer there was, in terms of kind of like massive sound for such a small fellow. And I think Williams really kind of wanted to take that in. And by seeing Blakey as much as he could and sitting in with his band, he was doing everything he could to make that a feature of his own playing. Now, one man who probably doesn't get enough recognition and credit when discussing Tony Williams' influences is the great Alan Dawson. He's a man who shared Tony's unique ability to bring simple rhythmic patterns to life through phrasing and articulation. And I'm now going to play you a recording of his from Denmark in the 60s with Rollins and Niels Henning Ørsted Pedersen, the great bassist who was actually only around 19 at the time. And they play There Will Never Be Another You, and I'm going to skip to his solo and pay close attention to the way he manipulates phrasing with such clarity and such creativity. And I think this is a trait which Williams really tried to kind of take in and adopt. And I think he, without a doubt, successfully did. Here it is. So as you can see there, it's just simple rhythmic patterns repeated, but the placement of it and the preciseness of it is what really brings it to life. So that was Sonny Rollins in Denmark with Alan Dawson and NHOP. So when Tony Williams was 15, he was already considered to be one of the best drummers on the Boston circuit, which is pretty incredible for a 15-year-old. And by the time he was 17 years old, he got the call by Miles Davis, and he joined a band which consisted of Ron Carter on bass, Herbie Hancock piano, Miles Davis on trumpet, and the saxophonist was, when he first joined the band, either Sam Rivers or George Coleman, but eventually the kind of final piece to the puzzle was when Wayne Shorter joined in '64, and that band became the second great Miles Davis quintet. And I think, although it's the second great quintet, many consider this band to be one of the greatest small jazz ensembles there ever was. The link up that Tony Williams had, particularly with the rhythm section, Ron Carr and Herbie Hancock, was unparalleled. And together as a trio, as a rhythm section, they began to reshape the role of a rhythm section within the context of a small jazz ensemble. You know, it was, before them, it was just, they were kind of the foundation of the band. You know, a band couldn't function without the rhythm section. Of course, they would still bring it to life, but when these young cats came in, they basically turned the rhythm section into a vehicle for dictating the dynamics of the band, the tempo of the band, you know, the vibe, the feel. It was pretty special what these three guys did. I think it is fair to say Tony Williams has to take most of the credit for the incredible drive and propulsion that this band had, you know. And I think it was a special talent of his that because it wasn't just this band that he had that effect. It was every band he was in, you know. And you know, with this band, Miles Davis famously stated Tony Williams was the center that the group's sound revolved around. He completely made the quintet, and as I said, it wasn't his kind of innate ability to have such a forward drive with the music and momentum that he had that ability with every band he was in, which leads me on to the next band, Tony Williams' Lifetime. Now, as with seemingly every genre or subgenre within jazz he touched, he became a pioneer. Notwithstanding fusion, he's probably, again with fusion, considered the greatest fusion drummer, or one of the greatest fusion drummers there ever was. And in 1969, he started his own band. He kind of left Miles's band and wanted to go and do his own thing with Lifetime. And he released his first album, Emergency, which interestingly was chastised by a lot of the jazz community because they felt like, you know, his heavy rock influence was just, it was a disrespect to the tradition of jazz. But, you know, as time went on, people really began to see what a masterpiece in fusion this band and Tony Williams was. Again, it wasn't just fusion. He was considered to be an integral contributor to the avant-garde movement. You know, he played on many of the classic free records, including Andrew Hill's Point of Departure, Eric Dolphy's Out to Lunch, Jackie McLean's One Step Beyond. Jackie McLean, actually, he was in Jackie McLean's band when he was 16, which is it's just pretty incredible, really. The kind of unique and individual drumming style, and he was, you know, he was one of the first drummers to really focus on how he could manipulate textures through polyrhythms, and you know, I think he and Herbie particularly had a unique ability to build tension through ostinatos and then release it beautifully, you know, creating a real swing and propulsion to the music. One of his favoured rhythms to manipulate was the 2-3 rhythm, and if you listen to the recording of Joshua from 7 Steps to Heaven by Miles Davis, the album, you can really hear how he kind of employs this manipulation of the 2/3 cross rhythm over 3/4 section of Joshua. He does a 2/3 cross rhythm, and it's really kind of creative how he manipulates the rhythm. One of my kind of musical heroes is Thelonious Monk, and I think one thing that Tony and Monk and many of the greats shared was their kind of capacity to constantly fend off criticism from the jazz purists, and it's, you know, it's commendable. And I think without their single-minded, dogmatic kind of approach to the music, you know, it wouldn't be what it is today. Talking about the legacy that Tony Williams as a drummer, it's really hard to find a drummer that he hasn't influenced. You know, he has such a significant impact on the jazz community. You know, he was such an individual. He kind of brought this energy and this creativity that hadn't been seen before on the drums. Terry Lynn Carrington, who was a drummer for Herbie Hancock for a period, said Tony Williams' style of playing was something else. His ride cymbal beat defined the way of playing that most of us have today. He was a pioneer in the jazz fusion movement as well. There's not much more to say about him other than, you know, he was just truly an incredible drummer, and the music, jazz drumming, would not be the same without him.